Welcome to the AP podcast. Today we have Austin Stout. Welcome, Austin.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Hey, I'm super excited to get Austin on the podcast today, guys, because he's been in the industry for a while now. He's really into bodybuilding, but also why I brought him on today is because he's so into supplementation and the performance side of things, health. He has his own podcast that he talks a lot about this kind of stuff. So I want to bring him on and kind of go through what he suggests for supplements for performance, or whether it's trying to gain muscle mass, lose fat, all that stuff. So first of all, Austin, I kind of want to just introduce you, kind of give some background information of, schooling, experience, stuff like that. So what kind of got you into the fitness industry?
Okay, so I think like most people, I got interested through high school sports. I think that's where a lot of people really start with weight training in some capacity. Now, I would say that most people that lift weights in high school don't really give a crap about their nutrition other than whatever they see in ads. They buy supplements and drink protein shakes and buy test boosters at GNC or whatever. But
yeah,
right. But I was actually a really avid wrestler through junior high and high school. And it was something I was going to pursue in college. I had a scholarship to wrestle, but I actually opted out of the scholarship because it was just a schooling choice, basically where I wanted to go to school. It didn't jive very well. But the wrestling is really what got me interested in nutrition, because if you know anything about wrestling, fighters, boxing, the weight component there obviously that's a huge part of it. I mean, UFC is super popular. We know people cut tons of weight and all that, I knew that, and I knew what it did to me performance wise. And I kind of got interested in it. I'm like, man, there has to be a better way to do this, that I don't feel like crap for the first two matches of a tournament, until my body starts, getting going again. So I looked into it more, started researching, and almost everything that I came across was mostly from bodybuilding forums, magazines, stuff like that. I kind of noticed that bodybuilders or physique athletes or just anyone that's high level knowledge was kind of ahead of the medical community in terms of the science. Like, they were doing stuff that had not been studied. And that's kind of how our whole community is anyhow. We do a lot of the stuff that gets studied later. So
yeah.
I hooked up with a guy that I'm still good friends with now. And found out he was actually helping an entire wrestling team that was down in his area. And I asked him, hey, can you work with me on nutrition? This is what I'm doing, and so for my last couple of years of wrestling, I actually did a really strict plan. I mean, everything was weighed just like I would for bodybuilding. I brought my Tupperware to school every single day. I ate out of containers at school, all that stuff. So my performance went through the roof, because now instead of cutting 15 pounds a week, I could stay within 3 to 4 pounds of my weight class, pull a little bit of water on a Friday night, weigh in Saturday, good to go, no problems. So that after that, if anyone that's interested in nutrition and bodybuilding or performance, they kind of get bit by that bug. They run with it. So I actually started after wrestling. I'm like, oh, this weight training thing is really cool. And I'd been weight training seriously through routine. I knew a little bit about progressive overload and getting stronger and all the basics of mechanics and stuff. And towards my senior year of high school, I actually, at the end of the year, I decided I'm going to prep for a bodybuilding show and compete in the teen division. So I started prep for my first show. I was still in high school. And so that was really it. I mean, I was prepping through the end of high school, and after school, as a part-time job, I wanted to, do the whole personal training thing one-on-one. So I got my certificate. So actually I was talking to my wife the other day, it was somewhat recently, about this winter will actually be 10 years since I helped my very first, training client. But personal training led into led into more competing, led into nutrition, and I was going to go to school for either nursing or physical therapy, and I realized that it's just really not what I wanted to do, and I decided all the prerequisites are the same. So I'd already done all my health prerequisites. I decided I would pursue nutrition after that, and then I got my bachelor's. And I know that we were talking credentials a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I did various certifications and stuff. I've had certifications in holistic nutrition, some really hippie stuff that I like.
Yeah, that's sweet.
Even I was even certified in yoga just because I wanted to take the class. Like I did some different various stuff like that, certified in strength and conditioning, all that stuff. I decided that I wasn't going to go back and get my master's degree because as I considered it, but my coaching business that I have now it just took off. And I realized, I started looking around through the industry and people that were really successful. And I realized that pretty much nobody has a degree. Like a lot of guys that are really good don't even have degrees, smart guys. And then there are plenty that do.
Yeah.
There are plenty that do. And it does look good on paper. I think now in 2018, if you would have talked to me in 2010, people were like, oh, a degree, that's stupid. Now, I mean, it is, the research-based community is a lot bigger than it used to be. Mm-hmm. It's definitely a lot more pertinent than it used to be. But with that said, you can learn anything. You can be self-taught with just about anything. It's just some people retain information and process information, and then obviously you have to know how to apply it. Yeah. That's, the application is really what we do as coaches. That's what you pay for when you get a coach's application.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at now. I coach like about on average like 45 to 55 people is about where my client load is. That's kind of what my comfort zone is. Mm-hmm. 7 days a week, all day long, pretty much.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I think that's great. And it's kind of funny how the whole schooling part and with the degree and everything, it's so much now on, especially social media or stuff, you see you don't really see the big name coaches that are still producing good guys. They don't have all these degrees and stuff. It's just like putting it into application and just trial and error, or from somebody else's mentorship, and just all that kind of stuff has been almost more beneficial, way more beneficial for me than any really the schooling that I've gone through. But that's just kind of how it is. But I do agree that the research-based stuff is coming up a lot more, especially in like the bodybuilding and that kind of stuff. So
I was on a podcast. We recorded a podcast yesterday, one of the two that I'm on, and we talked about to be really good at coaching, you have to know the research, but you also have to know when to ignore the research. It's like, it's a weird thing because I apply research all the time. I mean, there's certain things that they could really never have a study where the variables are all set to make it realistic like real life. It's just not, it's just not possible. So
there's just so much, there's so much like new how to say it, like the studies and research. There's just so much, the population, the size of it, the quality of the populations, and the amount of studies over a certain population is kind of hard, especially when they have just a lot of new beginner lifters that respond to anything, right? Or something like that. Or if they have, trained individuals, but then the sample size or the population or the conditions aren't met of like making it a high or like a low p-value or whatever, you know what I mean? Like making it really actually applicable. So anyways, that's interesting that you, even out of your mouth and like 10 years experience, all these different certifications, and you apply it, but you'd say that you can literally find anything on the internet. I mean, there's a lot, and obviously you kind of got to know what to apply and what not to, but I think that's where mentorship kind of comes in, right?
Yeah. You have to, and see, that's something that we didn't have. Well, we kind of had Facebook when I started coaching a little bit, but it was more so forums, and there was the amount of research was pretty sparse compared to what we have now. But luckily, like I had a couple people that I kind of followed, but now, I mean, like I have 3 guys right now that I do mentorship with, and the amount of like how much that accelerates their coaching potential is incredible. They can't, I mean, there's certain things they're not going to be able to learn. Like I couldn't possibly run them through every scenario, but it could literally take 5 years experience and compact it into a year. And it, you know, I think in this industry, I know we're not talking specifically just about bodybuilding, but in the health and fitness industry where there's a lot of coaches, it's so saturated right now that you have to be good at it if you want it to be your career. Like I have these guys that come for mentorships and are like, I want to do this full time. Like, I just want to sit at home and answer emails. I'm like, okay, hold up. This industry is really, really tough. Not only from just coaching people, you can have all the knowledge, you can have all the experience, but then you're also getting into, you're dealing with people, and with people, there's always a psychological component too. So and I didn't even mention that I actually minored in psychology in school. So it was like one of the most useful things that I've probably ever done. And you just can't be ready for every situation. I'd like to say I've seen every type of person. I'm sure I haven't, but man, it's tough. And then you have a lot of people that they seem uncoachable, but you have to know how to relate the material. I think that just about everyone, I'm not going to say everyone, but most people have success within them if you know how to relate the material to them somehow.
Yep. Yeah, no, relating, literally, yeah, the words, perfect. I don't even know how to explain it better than that. It's coaching I've seen now, and I'm way younger and less experienced than you, and knowledge, everything. But going into this, it's like I see coaching now how much psychological component, it's almost more. I mean, it is more than the actual physiological component to make them for adherence, to actually relate to somebody. You know what I mean? Because I have people that like it cookie, like not cookie cutter, but like they like it 6 meals or 7 meals, you know, and like measured out all this stuff, how I like it, you know, like the same thing every day, all this thing. And some clients are just like, I can't do that. I need a variety. I need to do this. My schedule is like this. I need a intermittent fast. I need to do this. So I think that the psychological component to relate to them is really huge. And I think that the number one thing, if you're going to be a coach, is what you're saying is you got to learn the person that you're trying to help rather than just use one method for all of them.
Yeah, it's what's ideal in a bubble is not like it's not ideal necessarily in the real world. And you have to do different things. Like what might be ideal as far as producing optimum results, I might have to stray from that a little bit because that's not going to work with their schedule. It doesn't work with their personality. It just doesn't work with maybe even their financial situation. I mean, it could be anything. And I think that's luckily for me, like I feel fortunate that I picked up on that component really good. And I think that's one thing that's made me successful. And it's just allowed me to coach pretty much anybody versus just picking a niche and then sticking with the niche, because I have all kinds of, like, if you heard some of the stuff that I do, like I have the couple guys that I mentor and I do some weird stuff with people, because people that you would think just aren't coachable, like my wife, for example, God bless her. She's like the hardest, not because she doesn't want to adhere to a plan, and she's not competing or anything. She's talked about it. I don't really push it, but that's a different subject. But you know, she has some underlying health stuff and things that we deal with, and it's very, very difficult. Like it's almost like she's pushed me to learn more than anybody that I've ever worked with. And right now she does probably one of the strangest things as far as her meal. She literally eats, and if you're familiar with fasting at all,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So this is literally what I do with her. I take her caloric needs for the entire week, and she eats every other day. No joke. No joke.
Interesting.
She fasts all day and eats the next day, fasts all day and eats the next day. And so she literally just eats on the days that she trains. And she fasts and just drinks water. I mean, she might drink like a diet soda or something, or some coffee or something in between on the fasting days. But I mean, it's just, there's nothing with caloric value. If she's very hungry, we'll have something small at the end of the day, and I'll just, add it back into the calories for the week. And she's in a growth, quote unquote growth phase right now. Most successful growth phase she's ever had. And if I told somebody that, they'd be like, eating every other day, like, that's stupid. And her gym performance is better. She's so much happier. Her digestive system, which is obviously a big part of the issue, that's part of why we do it, is best it's ever been. I mean, so you run into, you got to be open to do just about anything.
That's interesting. Yeah, that I've never really heard. I know of just like doing fasting for a day for digestion, or trying to clear that out, or whatever. You're trying to get into ketosis if you're like trying to push it or whatever. Just don't eat for a little bit.
Right.
Every other day. How long has she been doing that?
So we started doing this, and I've full disclosure, I've probably tried everything with her. I've done intermittent fasting. I've done, just smaller, like higher meal frequency, lower meal frequency. I've used different types of foods as far as like digestibility, more processed, less processed, all that stuff. And digestive supplementation, all of that. But she's probably been doing this for at least a few months now, and through this, like, quote unquote growth phase. And she loves it. Like, she'll probably never eat another way in her life. Because she has zero problem with it. Like I said, she'll get hungry by the end of the fast day, and she might eat a little bit, but it's interesting. It's definitely interesting, but it's hilarious watching her eat on the days that she needs to eat, because, well, now I have to fit in all of those calories in one day. So what kind of stuff is she going to have to eat? Like, I do, flexible dieting where it's clean food, and I allow a little bit of room for some processed food, just because we need that for that caloric value. But it's random. Yeah. And she has typical female hormonal cravings of stuff. It's like last night, her meal after training was a lot of clean stuff. Like, she had turkey bacon, which is this organic stuff that I buy. It's literally like 6 grams of protein per strip, 1 gram of fat, nothing else, so clean protein source. She had a vegetable. She had some unsweetened applesauce, and she had organic mozzarella sticks, and and then she had a Tootsie Pop, which is like 15 carbs. But it's like, it's strange. It's really strange, but I mean, we make it work. Now people are gonna email me after this and be like, dude, can I try that?
What other stuff you got for me, man? Yeah, I've been trying to lose weight, and I want to do this crazy 2 on, 1 off. Yeah, no, but it's interesting you say all this though, because I think that in the schooling system, there's ACSM, and there's just like the recommendations and NSCA of how to do everything for somebody.
Right.
And then you have the confidence, and I think that's the best thing, is to actually research it, but having the confidence to apply it. And that's something you got to get on a level with your client and say, hey, we can try this, but I want to be on the same page in case it doesn't work. If it does, because if it does, then exactly what you're telling me right now, it could be the best thing they've ever done, and will continue to do for the rest of their life, maybe even. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, and because it's sustained, like, adherence and sustainability is key factor to success, no matter what. It's not like, and for some people, sustainability is literally doing the, 5 to 6 meals every single day. There are people that will do that for the rest of their life. They don't even care. That's fine. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably be one of those people that literally eats. I'll probably always be conscious of my body composition and eating for nutrient density and the way I look. And even when I'm not trying to gain muscle, just because that's who I am and that's what I do. But for her, with health things and stuff that I want to manage, like I want her to be able to be healthy for her whole life and do stuff that she can sustain and not hate her life. It's like,
Yeah.
that's a big part of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, I think that's great. So, kind of wanted to transition though, because originally we're going to go in some supplements, but I actually really like that because I think that's a big thing now that's going to be separating coaches coming in. Like even myself, newly experienced more, rather than you, like has 10 years or 10 plus years now, probably, that can separate yourself to be successful because you said it's going to be really tough and challenging. But to kind of break away and not do the cookie cutter stuff or try to just like market and just sell and just, you know what I mean? Like run people through this program.
Right.
But to actually kind of go on a client basis of figuring out what's best for them. So I think that was really good. But for supplements, I really want to dive into this. I even got my Got Supplement shirt on for you today. And
I like
it. You have done some formulations for some companies actually, right, Austin?
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit. It's nothing that I would ever put public, just friends,
Mm-hmm.
that friend owns a supplement company. I don't know. I mean, he probably runs it by other people too, but I literally see every single formulation. And we always talk about it, sample it, go through, like he'll message me at just random times like, dude, I got it. Here it is. What do you think? Whatever.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I enjoy doing that stuff. And I definitely enjoy learning about the supplement component of things. There's a couple camps about it. There's that camp that people that are like, oh, supplements are useless. You don't, whatever. And I think now more than ever, we have good supplement choices and we have a lot of information about supplements.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think everyone necessarily knows how to apply them 100% yet, but we are progressing in the supplement industry
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because I think they're starting to break down more on the supplements, I guess you'd say, even though it's not FDA regulated still. But you can start to get better quality things, I guess, hopefully now. And there's more research
Yeah.
that's done. But what I wanted to ask you, because a lot of people listening probably are going to the gym and they are a younger demographic, male or female, and they see the ads, GNC or whoever it is, with the pre-workouts that makes you look like this, or you got to drink your protein shake immediately post-workout with this, or creatine, all these different things. I want to ask you some of your top supplements for performance, and you can go like into ingredients or specific ingredients rather than like a whole entire product, and tell us
Sure.
like why would you pick that? So you're not making money and like you can actually have the benefits, I guess you would say.
Yeah, sure. So I think I'm trying to think of, I probably put a time frame on it. Within the last probably 3 to 5 years, we break things down like the pre-intra post-workout supplementation. It's a really big thing. I think the post-workout has actually slowly phased, like that's toned down a lot. And now we're really into the pre and intra workout supplementation a lot, just because we've realized the benefit of, well, hey, now we're training, our blood flows increase, our nitric oxides increase, these nutrients are getting to our muscles, we can slow down fatigue, we can perform better, we can basically be repairing our tissue before we even leave the gym type of, that's the concept anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
So like some of the supplements overlap pre and intra workout, but, and part of it's going to depend on budget too. That's always a disclaimer also, is I could make somebody like a pre-work or an intra workout that's like $20 a serving if we really wanted, because there's so many things out there. But just for me, things that I find that are clinically, they have science, they have evidence, they are, and within most people's budgets. If I'm looking at pre-workout, I want to do a few things. For this community, I want to probably try to increase blood flow, nitric oxide. I want to reduce fatigue somehow. I want to probably increase muscle pump or, fullness, whether that's like get more water into the muscle and help it swell, open the cells up for hydration, or whether that's, the blood thinning or the nitric oxide, like I said. So those are probably really the main things that I want to do. And then of course you have the nervous system component. So stimulants and stuff, which there's tons. And I'll kind of I'll start there. I'll actually just we'll start with stimulants, kind of talk about that. Obviously tried and true is caffeine. It has ergogenic benefits. It will increase performance. We know that it increases cognition. So just as far as productiveness, as far as even if you're not training, it's going to make you more productive for most people. It helps a lot of people feel better. You have that dopamine increase. You just feel better when you use it.
Yeah.
But obviously there are a lot of designer stimulants too. There are things that have been banned and things that are still legal and stuff that's kind of come and gone. When I say designer stimulants, it's stuff that they've basically taken and man-made it, or they've moved some molecules around and, and structurally and made it do something. And a lot of these are more like amphetamine type of stimulants.
Yeah. The
big one was DMAA. That was the huge thing back when we had the original like Jack 3D. Everyone was like, oh my God, it was basically meth. And it's like, it was basically like taking like Adderall, it's an amphetamine. It's definitely gonna make you super focused and very productive. But caffeine, now outside of caffeine, there's not a lot of things that I have people go into a lot of these designer stimulants, because sometimes they have weird effects. Yeah. And I just don't know how people will react. Now, people can react differently to caffeine too. I made a post about that yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, like talking about how caffeine's metabolized differently in different people. But it's relatively safe. If it doesn't work, then just don't use it, or adjust the dose.
Then it's cheap.
Yes. One disclaimer with that, it is cheap, but if some people if they don't buy like a pre-made supplement, I really suggest don't get caffeine in powder form, because it's really hard to dose. Because I don't know if you've ever seen, there's people that have actually died from, like, you take like a quarter teaspoon of caffeine powder, you're in trouble.
I've actually seen, because I've been messing around with like mixing my own pre-workouts and stuff, obviously. And they won't even let you buy it online, I don't think, unless it's in a capsulated form, or it's encapsulated, so they actually dose it. And I don't know how accurate the dosaging is from those capsulated forms, but I don't know if they actually allow them to sell, unless just pure powder now of caffeine. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the last overdose I saw was in the UK, so I'm not sure in the States, because I have a lot of clients in different countries too. So now we're talking about different regulations, and there's some weird regulations between the US and even just the US and Canada. There's differences. Like in Canada, ephedrine is over the counter still. It's like ephedrine it's a fantastic performance booster and cognitive booster. But with any stimulant, like the more powerful it is, the more chance you have to build a tolerance, the more chance you have to become addicted to it. And I don't like, I would argue this to the bitter end that in the United States, especially probably all over the world, caffeine is like one of the most addicting substances. It's really hard to stop, and
Yeah.
it's really hard to it's really easy to build up a tolerance. I think that you can use caffeine long term within like certain dose ranges, ranges and stuff. It's not You're not going to build up a tolerance very quickly. And I can normally what I see with people, this is like a gross generalization, but normally what I'll have clients do is days they don't train, I'm like, okay, let's keep your caffeine minimum. Let's go 100 milligrams or less. That's, maybe that's a cup of coffee, or maybe you really like that diet cherry Coke or whatever, and you want to have a can or two or something, we can fit that stuff in. But the pre-workouts and taking your thermogenics and all that stuff, we're trying to limit it unless we're real close to a contest prep, and that's literally the only thing that keeps them alive. But, then we'll go training days, the dosage. I'll normally say, let's try to stay in that 300 and below range. And some people, it's a little bit less. I noticed that you start getting past that, and there's a little bit of literature on it. You start getting past like that 300 to 400 range too frequently, then you start building the tolerance. It's real, dude. It goes downhill so fast from there. It's really like, oh gosh, next thing I know, I'm taking a pre-workout that has 300 milligrams. I'm drinking 2 Monster Zeros and I'm a cup of coffee. I'm like, well, now you're at about 700 milligrams a day. And, and you still are like barely feeling it. So
That's
caffeine.
funny. Yeah, that's funny that you bring that up because I literally this week is the week that I feel like shit because I cut it all to resensitize everything because I was my own guinea pig for the last month on caffeine because I haven't pushed a caffeine dose past, I want to say in total for a day, really past 300 to 400, just because I just know my body now that like once I get past that, and I just start feeling like shit in parts throughout the day, just constantly spiking and constantly spiking. But I tested it to see if I could just keep caffeine in my blood pretty much all day long. And I noticed some interesting things. I don't know if you've played around with that before because I feel like shit this week, but it's getting better. But played along with like instead of pre-workout 20 minutes, and I don't know the half-life of caffeine entirely, but instead of doing the full dose, like 300 right before you work out, like 20 minutes or so, I had like a couple cups of coffee an hour to 2 hours prior to like elevate my caffeine levels in my blood. And then I took 200 or 150 milligrams of caffeine, something pre-workout, and I seemed that it almost worked as good or better, having my levels already heightened and then that little more like peaking. So I don't know if you know anything about that. I was going to actually ask you that personally because I don't know what you've done or seen with that. Oh shit, you there? Nope, lost you for a
Hey,
second.
can you hear me? I'm
Yeah.
still here.
Wow.
Yeah. You want me to pick up?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, so there was actually some older studies, and I'm not, well, by older, I don't know how old they are exactly, but the tolerance, like the amount of caffeine that you can actually ingest in a serving, there was some stuff they did with like body weight, differences in body weight and stuff, and just bigger people can take more. The dosages were really high. Like they were really, really high. But obviously then you have the tolerance and all that. But as far as like what you're doing, like the stepping stool type approach, uh, I actually do something similar on my training days when I do take in caffeine,
Really?
and I like it like that.
Holy
like for
shit,
example,
really?
yeah, and I did it by mistake. Like I
That's
didn't, it
yeah.
wasn't, yeah, yeah, it wasn't intentional. But so like today, since I work from home, I try to, um, I pretty much work. I mean, I'm pretty much like answering emails all day long. So I'm like, I got to go to the gym, figure out whenever I can go. So I'd normally go around midday or early afternoon because it's not too busy. So let's say I'll have a little bit of caffeine in the morning. Maybe it's like 100 to maybe like leading up to my pre-workout, I'll have like 1 to 200 milligrams in that span. And then pre-workout, I might have another 100 to 150 milligrams. And I'm like, I feel pretty decent. Like I feel like my dopamine levels are up. I feel positive, like that euphoric type feeling.
Yeah.
But I feel really controlled. I feel everything's productive. I'm not going to die later because I just took in 400 milligrams. And also, you mentioned half-life. So with the half-life, it depends on how you metabolize it, but a half-life of caffeine is like, could be like 5 to 6 hours, give or take. And this is the thing that gets people a lot, is that they train, a lot of people that, especially that train in the evening, they take in their caffeine and they don't really feel it later in the day. So let's say even though they fall asleep okay, the caffeine that's still present in your system is going to interrupt your REM sleep. Okay. So your sleep quality is not as good. Like you might fall right asleep. Like, oh, I'm fine. But I'm like, no, the caffeine's still in your system because in order for it to clear, it could take 10, 12 hours. And I mean, if there's like 20 milligrams in your system or something, it's probably not a real big deal. If there's a little bit left that you haven't excreted yet. But if you train at 6 and you took Mr. Hyde at 5 that has 400 milligrams, and you go to bed at 10, I don't care how tired you are, there's still a lot of caffeine left in your blood, and it will interrupt your sleep quality. And the only way that people kind of figure that out is that if I have them go completely off of it or just train a couple days without it, they're like, oh my gosh, I fell asleep the same, but my sleep quality was so much better and I feel so much better. I don't feel like I even need the caffeine now. And I think a lot of people think I'm like anti-caffeine, but I'm not, because I use it. It's just that I think there's certain ways to use it. So also a couple other little things on stimulants is there are some timing issues. So let's say somebody does work out in the evening and they still want to get a little bit of stimulation. They don't want to interrupt the sleep or whatever. One thing that I've done with evening training, because once in a while I'll go in and train with my wife in the evening, and it's probably like, let's say like 5:30. We'll go to bed around 10:30, because I typically get up pretty early. So I don't want, if I have caffeine in me, I don't want it to be a lot, because I want most of it to clear. But if I want some stimulation, this is a little trick, and I don't put this one out there a lot, but I'll actually use nicotine, which is because that half-life is only about 2 hours, and it hits you in about 2 minutes. And it takes very little. That's weird. Oddly enough, like I've never smoked. I'm definitely not addicted to nicotine by any means, because I'll use it just sporadically whenever I need to, like whenever I feel it's like appropriate timing wise. And I never crave it, because the disclaimer with nicotine, I say that people are like, oh my gosh, nicotine. I'm like, well, nicotine itself isn't really necessarily the harmful component of smoking. It's the carcinogens and inhaling smoke into your lungs. But nicotine is a stimulant. It has, of all stimulants, it probably has the best dopamine and euphoric effect. I mean, there's people that do it in prep a lot that they're like, especially for like appetite suppression, you can take a cigarette, let's say it has like 8 to 15 milligrams. I'm just giving like a rough estimate. If you take one, if you've never smoked and don't just like abuse the shit out of stimulants. I don't know if I'm allowed to cuss on here, but sorry. If you take 1 milligram of nicotine, you're like, oh my God, this stuff is amazing. I mean, I'll do 1 to 2 milligrams. I'll buy a little 4 milligram piece, and I'll just bite the end of it off and put a piece of, regular Orbit gum or whatever in my mouth, chew it, put it like chewing tobacco would, and then read it. like I said, half-life's only about 2 hours. And so if I take a milligram or two of nicotine at like 5 o'clock or maybe 4, then it's pretty much gone by the time I go to bed. It doesn't hurt anything. And or during the day, if I just need to get something done really fast and I don't want to take a bunch of caffeine, I just need I need an hour. Okay. I'm going to chew like 1 milligram of nicotine, not very much. And I am like, holy crap, I got everything done. Makes me super productive. So that's a little trick if people want to experiment with it. Just start really low. You can buy 2 to 4 milligram pieces. I just get the off-brand. It's like whatever generic, because the Nicorette stuff is really expensive, but they normally come 2 to 4. Don't take it all your first time, because if you pop 4 milligrams, you are going to be dizzy and probably lightheaded. You might even throw up. Yeah, you might even, it'll make you feel really strange, but nicotine's cool stuff. And like I said, appetite suppression. The other one that's really new that I have to mention, because a lot of people ask, is teacrine. A lot of people ask me about it. I've used it, and one of the cool things is you don't build a tolerance to it very easily. Mm-hmm. So in theory, you don't have to keep titrating up your dose all the time, because it doesn't, you just don't build a tolerance. So that's cool. That's obviously beneficial. Biggest downside for me personally is the half-life is really, really long. So, and I don't even know that we necessarily have a 100% answer on how long the half-life is, because I've seen some studies, but again, then you have like individual variants of, how you metabolize it. I mean, I've seen stuff that said the half-life was like 24 hours. And I'm like, well, can't even, like, how are you you can't clear it out of your system, because it's going to be there all day. And I've seen others that say like 12 hours, if you took it in the morning, dosages can be anywhere from like 1 to 300 milligrams, kind of give or take, kind of similar to caffeine dose. Then it works good with caffeine if you want to use them together in like smaller doses, so you don't build up as much tolerance. Someone that trains in the morning, that would probably be really good for them. They wouldn't have a crash afterwards. That stimulant would still be in their system for a while and kind of taper off really slow. That way there's no dive, and they can still sleep at night. I don't know if I buy into 24 hours. I mean, I really don't know for sure, but yeah, I would say those 3. Like I said, I don't really get into the designer ones a lot. I think the only thing people should watch for is just know how to read labels and stuff, because they hide caffeine a lot in products.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you were kind of talking there about people who train in the evening, and that brings up a good point. I was going to ask you about, do you use, what is that, theanine, or is it tyrosine? Yeah. It blocks that response so it kind of helps clear the caffeine out. I don't know if it clears the caffeine out, or if it just blocks the response so you don't have the stimulation. You know what I mean?
I'm looking up an ingredient right here, and because I can't pronounce it to save my life, I need to make sure I'm trying to pronounce it right. Let's see.
I hate when you can't pronounce that shit, because there's a lot of different ingredients.
I can't pronounce it. I'm trying to think of what it's called. It starts with an R. Oh, gosh. I'll tell you what, I know what product it's in. But anyhow, I can continue talking on it. So theanine increases GABA levels.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about theanine is, it crosses the blood-brain barrier a lot better than GABA, because you can just buy GABA supplement, and GABA will give you like a weird tingling and stuff, so you feel like it's working, but I feel that theanine actually works way better. I have all kinds of people use theanine. I don't want to abuse it, because with anything that affects neurotransmitters like GABA, serotonin, dopamine, you don't want to constantly be bombarding your receptors with it, because you know what else affects dopamine all the time? Cocaine, meth, like the reason you want that stuff constantly is because, it's right. Feels good. So yeah, exactly. That's why I don't do any recreational drugs, because I would probably become addicted, but no, that's not good.
Well, you could dose that theanine though, and uh, so for people taking caffeine later in the evening, um, maybe because, for example, somebody who's dieting, they're on their thermogenic, right? And they got this cool thermogenic, and the workouts are just going great, but they had to take it around 4 or 5 in the evening or later, and they're wanting to try to get to sleep still. I guess, does taking theanine give you better quality sleep by releasing the caffeine out of your blood, or the caffeine is still in your blood? It's just blocking the neurotransmitters from the effects of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So it's not really going to cleanse it any quicker, but it definitely dulls the effects a lot. There's a couple ways I'll use theanine or theanine. Just for general anxiety, it works really good. It's not really super sedative as long as you don't take a ton of it, and it smooths things out. So for example, people that use those stimulants and they want the performance, but they get really jittery and anxious, and they're not focused. They're kind of just all over. Theanine really focuses it in. The other would be people that use yohimbine HCl for fat loss. Some people don't have any issues with it. They can take like 25 milligrams of it, some crazy doses. And other people, they take like 2.5 milligram cap, and they're freaking out.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Unfortunately, I'm not high tolerance to that shit, because I use
yeah.
yohimbine with myself and with clients and stuff, especially for contest prep. And I I feel like, I don't know if those receptors are like just fucking burnt out or what, but yeah, some people 2.5 milligram, those I don't know what company that is, but they do 2.5 instead of 3 milligram tabs, and they're like, holy cow. And then a big one of that, they're like, arousal level is increased a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of in some of the male enhancement formulas and stuff, but I mean, it does that for some people. I mean, I don't really notice it a ton, but I do notice that, like, I have a good tolerance for it. So for fat loss, I'll use it. But if people don't react well, or just don't react well to stimulants in general, the theanine can really smooth things out and make you more productive. You could consider it like a nootropic, I guess, kind of. And then at night, yeah, it'll definitely take the edge off so you can sleep. I'll do that, especially in like people that are deep into a fat loss phase or a contest prep, when I just, I don't care if they use it every day. We just need to try to get quality sleep, because things are just really, their circadian rhythm is just off at this point. So I'll use dosage. If you want to use it during the day, I would say 1 to 200 milligrams is pretty standard. If you want to use it at night, more so for sleep, you can go closer to the 300 range for it. Most people don't have any issues with that. It starts getting a little more sedative, like the more you take. But so I found the other ingredient, and it's called rutacarpine. Okay. And I'm not even know if I'm saying it right, but
hold on. Right when you were going to say it, it started to glitch. Okay. One more, start over.
Okay. So the ingredient is called rutacarpine. I'm not sure if that's exactly how you pronounce it, but that's what it looks like. But so this is actually an ingredient that does speed up the excretion of caffeine. So this is interesting. Now, it has a really big downside, though. The downside is that most of the literature seems to point towards it taking a little while for it to work. Like, if you would have to take it for continuous days for it to, build up in your system for it to work. So I guess if you were in a prep for the end of a fat loss phase or something, and you were just using caffeine daily at that point, just because you needed it for that, I know how it goes.
Yeah.
So it's that could be beneficial then if you build it up. You're looking at like anywhere from like 1 to 300 milligrams. It acts on it acts on the liver, actually metabolizes mainly in the liver. So the other downside is that the enzyme that processes it also metabolizes a lot of other drugs. So there's a big chance that you could kind of affect metabolization of maybe like you take an antidepressant or you take a lot of other things. So that's kind of the downfall of it. Like, it's come up in some products I've seen. The concept of it's really cool. I just that there's a lot of ways that it could interrupt other things. So kind of
No,
it
that's
could be
interesting though. Yeah, because I've never seen or like been exposed to using anything like that. Almost kind of like a GDA for caffeine. It's kind of crazy. So, um, yeah, I actually want to look into that. That and kind of see, and because I train in the evening, and that's why I have to use either tires or theanine or something like that would benefit a lot. But
You're
anyways,
good. I just
yeah,
have someone walking in.
no problem. No, hey, but so what the hell are we talking about? Stimulants. Okay, stimulants. Pretty much just caffeine for performance. If you're not like a person getting into some crazy like a contest prep or something for high level performance, because also you can get like ephedrine over the counter still at a pharmacy, not over the counter, but you can pretty much get it over the counter. Yeah. And so, but I don't suggest that for somebody who's just wanting to kind of generate weight loss or something like that. Plus, if you're in like a sport, like definitely you're gonna get probably busted for that if you're getting tested. But I'd say
There we
that
go.
caffeine as well. Yeah, caffeine. And I've been messing around with those dosages and like the tolerance and the stepping thing, like you said. And it makes me feel really good that you actually had the same effects of kind of running into it by accident of the stepping stone. Because I was like, fuck, like I feel like these workouts are more controlled, but I still have like a lot of energy. You know what I mean? Like I was lifting heavier weights, and then I don't know, it was crazy. So, kind of verified that. But you also talked about getting into some nitric oxide boosting stuff. So, what, in your opinion, would you go to now? I know there's been so many new things over the last like fucking 5 years. Started like just regular or old stuff like arginine, and then derivatives of arginine going into agmatine, sulfate, and different things. What do you suggest?
Okay, so yeah, Arginine was kind of one of the originals, but I think that we found that there's stuff that's better. Uh, I would say probably number one, the top two are probably agmatine sulfate and citrulline malate, or just free form
Yeah.
citrulline. So citrulline malate's just citrulline bound to malate. There's not like you can. That's what you see in most formulas. That just means that it's not 100% citrulline. There's a little bit of that malate that it's bound to, but um, so usually the issue here with like a lot of other ingredients is that they just don't put enough in a lot of the formulas so it just doesn't work very well. But with citrulline, the good formulas that actually do put a high enough dose, you're looking at probably, I would say minimum, depending on what you're doing, you're probably looking at like 4 grams. You can start going up towards 6 and 8 grams. If you're really looking for just maximum nitric oxide, you could do 8 grams if you're not worried about like having a big pump and stuff. If you're an athlete and you are doing something like some kind of endurance sport or something that you just don't want to be, lose your grip while you're cycling or mountain biking or something, you might not want to have like the super huge forearm pump. Okay. Obviously. So you could probably go towards a little bit lower dose. But yeah, citrulline malate's really cool. Has tons of studies. You're looking like I said, 4 to 8 grams. I don't think anyone would really argue that it's not effective at this point. It's
Yeah.
pretty good ingredient. You can find, like I said, you can find it in bulk or find it in pre-made formulas. As far as the agmatine goes, a lot lower dosing. I've done anywhere from like effective doses. You'll see stuff maybe like as low as 100 milligrams, maybe a little bit less. But I've worked, like myself, I've experimented with higher stuff as far as like 2 grams, probably. It's about the highest, go about 2 grams. Now, it does have some cool, I don't know that I notice it a lot because I'm pairing it with like a stimulant that also gives me that, mood elevation, but it's supposed to have some antidepressive effects. I don't, like I said, I don't personally notice it. I've never taken it by itself in an environment that I could probably evaluate it very fairly, but for just be looking for just like maximum nitric oxide blood flow, you could just start at about 1,000 milligrams and see, kind of mess with it. You can go anywhere from that 1,000 to 1,500 if you want to try 2 grams. I mean, I've never seen, no one's going to have probably really bad effects at 2 grams. So just kind of mess around with it.
Just going to have some strong flavored BCAs to mix with it.
Yeah, it doesn't taste very good. So definitely. And that's something too. It's not necessarily directly related, but if you're looking at, like, if you look at some of the really good products that clinically dose things, they're hard to flavor. I've never flavored anything. I'm not in the manufacturing or anything, but just from what I've talked about with people, if you have like a gram of agmatine, 8 grams of citrulline, you have a bunch of glycerol, you have like beta alanine, you have all these things. It's like, that stuff is hard to flavor 20 grams of ingredients, and make it taste like, cherry Kool-Aid or whatever. So it's like, but yeah, that's right. Those are probably 2 of my favorite as far as just nitric oxide goes. Now, kind of piggybacking off of that, because that's going to be like pump ingredient, blood flow. If you want just pure pump ingredient, as far as like hydrating the muscle, pulling as much intramuscular water nutrients in, then we probably go to glycerol would be the best for that. I believe glycerol was probably first used by runners and like endurance athletes and cyclists they called it like ultra hydration. So what they found was they could take this glycerol and they could super compensate with these nutrients and fluid that they wouldn't be able to cram in there otherwise. They found that the glycerol was like was an extra storage unit for them. So they use that. But with the glycerol, it's, again, if you're looking for the hydration aspect and not necessarily like the pump aspect, you want to be careful, because if you're pounding a bunch of water and you are, let's say, rock climbing, you don't want to be like completely jacked, like your delts and arms completely pumped to where you can't grip the wall. So you're probably going to want to go, right. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So you're probably going to want to go well, I should also say that this depends on the form as well. You're going to see 2 major forms in a lot of the formulas. Glycerol monosterate is the cheaper form, takes a little bit more. It's not as absorbable, yada, yada, yada. And then Hydromax glycerol is a little bit better form. You probably see Hydromax in a lot of the formulas now. A lot of the better formulas are going to have Hydromax in it. It takes a lot less. It's going to be pretty effective, clear down to probably like a gram. You could go higher though. I mean, formulas, looking for pure pump, you can go like 5-6 grams, even more. Like, I've experimented with it. There is a cap on it. It will cause GI distress if you go too high. But if you are using glycerol, it is one time that I would say glycerol really shines is if you're in a calorie deficit, you're not eating a lot of carbs, and you're kind of depleted. I can pretty much still always get a pump if I take glycerol and drink enough water and have electrolytes.
Okay, so yeah, sodium is in some glycerol and some water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh, interesting.
And the thing is, I'll piss the whole workout, like, because I'll drink like half to 3/4 of my daily water in the 2-hour window. But yeah, I'll drink a ton of water, have 5-6 grams of glycerol or my pre-made, whatever formula I'm using. And it definitely It definitely gives a good pump. You'll notice too, formulas that are really high dose with glycerol, the powder is actually like slightly sticky and clumpy. You can't like, there's really nothing you can do about it. I mean, they can't do anything to the product or put any kind of special packet in there or anything really to make it perfect. So some of the products get kind of sticky, but glycerol is awesome. Yeah, I mean, you could do the same thing with any form of glycerol. If you wanted, you could do like cheap vegetable glycerin that's like food grade. I've done it, and I had a friend that did it, and he was working up to like 25 grams or some, crazy shit with it, just to see like, hey, how much of this can I take and what
That's what I used
effect
to
will
do
it have?
before getting on stage. Yeah.
Yeah. Just as much glycerol as you can take without crapping your pants, basically.
Yeah.
It's
Pretty much, yeah. Show day was like, all right, let me get some glycerol in, some salt, and drink a little bit of wine, and I'll be good to go. Right?
yeah. So glycerol is pretty cool. It definitely works. So glycerol itself is actually it's basically the backbone of fatty acids. It's glycerol is found in fatty chains. So that's really what it is. But
Yeah.
yeah, nitric oxide and pumps, I would say those are probably your biggies. There are some other things. I mean, there are some smaller stuff out there that's kind of some niche ingredients. Like one thing that I've been experimenting with lately, if anyone's interested, is it's called Fruit Flow. It's actually a tomato extract. So it comes from tomatoes, but what it does is it thins your blood like aspirin. So
Like baby aspirin?
yeah, right. They supposedly the effective dose is about 3 grams. So the formula I have, I think it's like Swanson brand. It comes in capsules. There's 1,000 milligrams a cap. I take 3 grams pre-workout. I don't know if that's what it is, but my pumps the last week have been like stupid huge. So, I mean, maybe. Like there's other.
I don't know if have you ever used I would always wanted to try this, and I went to Mexico last month, and I wanted to try this, and I didn't end up doing it because it was still expensive as hell. But the citrulline and Cialis combo that is always talked about in like bodybuilding.
Viagra and Cialis are PDE5 inhibitors. They increase blood flow. They will work for a pump. They work really good. The main differences between the two are there's a few differences, but the main one being just how fast they work. Cialis stays in your system a lot longer. That's why I think over the counter, a lot of people have used that as like a daily use. So like, people that use it for erectile dysfunction, they take a low dose every day. They know that it's going to work when they need it. It's always there, so on and so forth. And then they have Viagra would be like, we need it right now type of thing. So you could use Cialis. Like, it has other benefits as far as blood pressure goes. There's some cardiovascular benefits to it as well. But if you wanted personally, like if you wanted like just a pump for maybe backstage or just a session, Viagra actually works quicker. It seems like as long as you don't use too much, it seems like most people tolerate it pretty good. But I mean, you could really use either, and they do give you. I mean, they will definitely help the pump. I mean, they're gonna help with vascularity, help with everything. So I mean, yeah, they definitely work. Viagra, I think like people typically use it around headaches and stuff from it. So you don't really want to have a big headache while you're trying to train. So, more isn't necessarily better. And Cialis it could mean for people that are prescribed it for daily use, it could be like 5 milligrams. They use very, very little. You could use more if you weren't using it every day. Because hey, the thing is too, is if you take Cialis for a pump, it's going to still be in your system at night if you have any kind of activities going on. So, you don't want to abuse it every single day. And then next thing you know is like, you will have a hard time without it at some point. Like at some
Yeah,
point,
tolerance.
there could be an issue. So it's not something that you would want to use all the time. But let's say, twice a week, you have a weak body part that you really want to bring up, like your arms suck and you want to get as big a pump as you can, as most advantageous environment as you can. You're going to train that day, 2 days a week, probably not going to have an issue. So yeah, definitely. It could be used for sure.
Interesting. No, yeah, that is then a good thing. Like you kind of broke it down in a way of actually benefiting instead of just hearing all the hype about it from different forums and stuff like that. But moving on to, so we did vasodilation, we did stimulants. Anything else you want to add for the pre stuff, or do you want to go like into the intra?
We could do, I'd say one other thing that there's, again, our disclaimer is there's a ton of ingredients. So we're not going to possibly be able to cover everything. We're just hitting some big ones. But another one that people are probably going to want to know about would be beta alanine, I would think. And so, or even you could do, I'll say beta alanine and creatine. So I'll just say both. With beta alanine and creatine, you don't necessarily have to take those things pre-workout. They're ingredients that once you build up saturation in your muscles, it's there, you're good to go. You can take your creatine whenever, you can take your beta alanine whenever. Some people like the tingles and stuff the beta alanine give them, so they take it pre-workout because it gets them, I don't know, excited. But yeah, but beta alanine is an interesting one because some people say it's completely useless, but I think that it has some use depending on the population. It works good if you're set, like if you're a power lifter, it's probably pointless to take because your rep ranges are low. You're not really getting in really far into that lactic acid threshold. So it's probably not going to do you that much good. If you are training really high reps or you're an endurance athlete, you're probably going to get some benefit from it if your bouts are long enough. So, during a set, like
and because of isn't it like a lactic acid buffer, and so you're
right,
kind of like push the hydrogen uptake a little further.
Right. So that's what it does. But the thing is, like I said, is some people will say, oh, it's useless for bodybuilding because your set would have to be a minute long or whatever. But if it's not really expensive, so like if it's already in a formula or you want to add it in separately as a daily dose, it will help if you're doing a big drop set, if you're doing a big high rep set. Like it does. I think that, maybe it's placebo for me, but I do truly think that it does help in those situations. And then it will help endurance athletes. So for me, all through the winter months, I still volunteer coach with 2 wrestling teams, and I wrestle the whole practice, like 2 hours, with the bigger guys, and wrestling, and they're tough, like they're long practices, and so I'm basically wrestling with a bunch of young guys the whole time. I mean, I'm not old, obviously, but in a situation like that where you're basically tensing all your muscles continuously, it's absolutely beneficial. So context, yeah, it just depends on how you're using it.
Yeah,
for sure.
gotcha. And I like using it too. Just feel like just the little bit of increase in body temperature and stuff.
Yeah.
I love that part of it because it makes me, I don't know, just the lubrication of everything. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah.
I do like it. I think it's a really cool ingredient to put in like if you're not using stimulants. It's like,
exactly. It is. Yeah. I agree 100%. Yeah. But so yeah, and then creatine, you said, kind of mixed in there. So you're saying you like to use, I like to use creatine a lot more than what other people probably use, but I do pre, intra, and then sometimes post as well. Not saying there's any more signed literature for benefits and all this stuff, but how do you kind of go about, do you like using it just straight pre-workout?
I normally would throw it in like pre or intra just because that's the most convenient time, because it mix it into whatever shake deal that I got going on. So, but it's the reason I said time specific was because once you reach muscle creatine saturation, once you reach that saturation point, basically you're just taking it to maintain that. That's why you can take, you're taking a daily dose. You are going to get creatine from meat and stuff like that. I would argue that it's probably not quite as absorbable as a pure creatine monohydrate because, your body's also sorting through a lot of other nutrients. That sounds like really bro sciencey kind of thing, but I mean, creatine's so super cheap that it's like worst case scenario is if you do need, let's say your body needs like 3 grams a day to be at saturation and you're taking 10. Well, it's like the cheapest supplement there is besides maybe, and there's some other things that are cheaper, but it's super cheap. Worst case scenario is you're just going to convert it to creatinine and you're going to excrete it and it doesn't really matter. So, it's not going to damage your kidneys.
No.
If you're drinking water, like people, you're drinking water, everything's hydrated. I mean, there's not really an issue there. So I pretty much have everyone included just because they might need it and it's cheap. So why not?
Yeah.
Basically.
I agree. Well, then for Intra, that's a pretty much probably the biggest transition recently would be intra workout nutrition coming up from it used to be like Milo Sarchev's, hyperemia, just like he was on the back burner because social media wasn't out yet and all that stuff. Well, maybe it was, but not really, to the depth it is now. But anyways, him and then now like, John Meadows, and then like, I don't know, other coaches are pretty much going hardcore, kind of founding that stuff. But I feel like doing intra-workout nutrition is really, 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 really advantageous, if not the most now, rather than it used to be post, like you said, but now intra is becoming so big. Even though we're probably going to talk about carbohydrates, even though in school I have had this debate now with my professor almost every time about there's no benefits to having carbohydrates for resistance training, benefits for having carbs or even essential amino acids or anything, because you're not depleting glycogen really that much, or all this stuff. So I would like to get your take on using intra-workout supplements and what you would suggest.
Okay, so this could be a situation where you might like take some science and some of the mechanistic stuff and kind of push it aside a little bit, because if for a lot of people that take intra-workout carbs and they notice a benefit, I'm like, I really don't care what science says because it works, so I don't care. You know what I mean? But yeah, it's like weight training in general is not depleting glycogen nearly to the extent that people think that it does. I mean, because it's mostly anaerobic, quick sets. You're going to deplete some glycogen for sure, but you're not going to fully deplete your body of glycogen stores in a workout. That's absolutely ridiculous. There's no way, and it won't happen. Like people that get depleted in a contest prep phase or a long fat loss phase, like that takes weeks to do, to fully deplete the body. Unless they're already partially depleted, and then, you might deplete yourself in a weight training session. But if you take a normal person that is not in a calorie deficit, that's eating to gain muscle, for example, no, it's not going to happen. So why would we use intra-workout? Well, it does seem to provide some performance benefit for a lot of people and provide a better muscle pump, better endurance. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. I think one of the main reasons is we are using the type of carbohydrate we're using makes a difference. So we want a carbohydrate that is going to basically hit the bloodstream as quick as possible. If you're not taking carbs in your workout, then you're pulling like glycogen that you need. You're having to pull it from your muscles and you're going to utilize it. Okay. Or whatever blood glucose is circulating in your blood, your body's going to use some of that too, but it can't just keep using that, because then your blood sugar would drop and you'd bottom out. So like your body is having to release something. Maybe it's from your liver. Maybe your liver's dumping some glucose, or maybe that your muscles are dumping some glucose, but something, even when your adrenaline goes up during training, those stress hormones will heighten blood glucose levels. So, I mean, like, your body has tons of mechanisms to make sure that you have glucose. Like, there's a reason that people can fast. Otherwise, you would just bottom out and you would die. So, but, with the intra workout stuff, people genuinely notice a benefit as long as you're using the right type of carbohydrate. So typically with the carbs, a lot of the popular ones are going to be highly branched cyclic dextrins. That's probably the big one. There's some other ones that I like Carbolin, which is basically like a modified starch. I do really good with it. And it's cheaper. It's cheaper than it's cheaper than the HBCDs. I have zero gastric problems, and none of my clients have issues with it. So if it's like a budget thing, I truthfully don't notice a difference between the two. If it's just like in smaller amounts, if people are really on a budget and I want to put carbohydrates in their workout, then we could even use like a dextrose or like a Gatorade powder or something. So there might be cases I use that. There's even cases where, like, context stuff, like they're eating so many calories that intra workout is another place that I can add calories in that they're going to digest stuff really easily. And it's they don't have to eat more food, but that's not most people. But you don't want to, the reason that you want to use carbohydrates that basically hit the bloodstream quick, they have fast gastric emptying, is because you don't want your body pulling a bunch of blood into your stomach to digest them, because you want that blood in your muscles. So that's one of the main reasons we're using those type of carbohydrates. They are not cheap necessarily, but they work. And the amount can vary a ton. I mean, I've had people that, if I'm getting down in like the 20 gram range or something super low, I'm probably just gonna be like, all right, why don't you just eat the food and you're gonna enjoy chewing your calories more. I'm not really worried about intra workout at this point. Yeah. But if you're 25 grams or over 50 grams, I have a guy right now that drinks 175 grams of carbs during his training. And he has no gastric problems whatsoever, none. And he actually has hydrolyzed protein with the carbs, no issues. And he gets huge
hydrolyzed protein in there, huh? Nice.
Yeah. So with going beyond the carbs a little bit, well, and another reason for the carbs, because there are a lot of components to that, but you are insulin sensitive. You're creating an insulin sensitive environment while you're training, so you're receptive at that point. You will be insulin sensitive post workout also, keep that in mind. But you are creating a good environment. People may have heard the term GLUT4 receptors tossed around. That's GLUT4 receptor translocation. That's another thing that's occurring, and you're going to have that enhanced carbohydrate absorption, to put it quite simply. So there are reasons that there are benefit to taking them in at that time, that you're going to store them more efficiently and utilize them more efficiently. And like going into some other stuff you can add, some of the pre-workout stuff, like the volumizing things, like glycerol, you could add. I mean, you could take that intra workout for sure if you wanted. There's no issue with that. You could, in theory, a lot of people like to cram in a bunch of nutrients intra workout, because they're like, well, insulin levels are up. We know that we're transporting these nutrients to muscle cells. So now I'm going to put my creatine in there. I'm going to put all my amino acids in there. I'm going to put a lot of those ingredients that I had pre-workout, besides probably the stimulants. I'm going to put those intra workout, because I'm going to jam it all into the muscle. That's kind of the Milos. That's kind of, the mentality.
But with him, there's different uses of insulin and stuff, exogenous forms, and that's which is the difference in how much glucose you have to have pushing at all times, pretty much. But no, I say I have never experimented with 175 grams, but I've gotten up to 100, maybe 120. I've gotten to 100, and I use it. Sometimes if I'm cheap, yeah, I'll use a Gatorade or a fruit juice or something, or but I like to use carbolin like you're using, or cyclic dextrin, or but one thing, if anybody's listening, I would not recommend using is like waxy maize or something of such, unless you for some reason digest that really well, like during. But it's not made for that. It's more made for like a meal replacement carbohydrate during the day to me, just for those hard gainers on ectos or whatever. But yeah, no, I wanted to ask you too, because during training, you're more insulin sensitive. It doesn't mean that you're going to be producing more insulin to say, right? Like your levels might come, they're not going to be as spiked, I guess you say, compared to like post workout, when you're having that meal. And I don't know, that's why I'm asking you. But also for people thinking like they need to, I don't know, have 100 grams. They don't need to have 100 grams, especially if they're not able to metabolize carbohydrates very well. But I think that there's only like a dosage of like 15 to 20 grams really to kind of be able to raise insulin to have the threshold of shuttling in amino acids. And I don't know if that's true. We kind of talked about that the other day with the professor. But what's your thoughts on that? And then you can kind of go into what you wanted to. I forgot.
Yeah. So you are only going to be able to produce so much insulin so quick, is, you know what I mean? So it's not like you're not just going to be able to necessarily take in 200 grams of carbs because you're more insulin sensitive. Like, it's just, that's not how it works. But yeah, I mean, for somebody that doesn't metabolize carbs well, there would be possibly some benefit to intra-workout because they were going to be more insulin sensitive, but also they still don't metabolize carbs well. Like, they're still not going to utilize massive amount. That doesn't mean just because you're using intra now that their carbs can go from 150 grams a day to 400 grams a day just because, oh, now we're putting them intra workout. No.
Yeah.
So, right. So yeah, it doesn't take us a lot of carbs to have an insulin response, to shuttle those nutrients, because you mentioned essential amino acids. So yeah, a lot of people are taking in essential amino acids during their training, and that's going to kind of help with that, repair process that we were talking about. But you would need at least a little bit of blood glucose raising, and then you're going to have the insulin's obviously going to, okay, blood glucose, we need insulin, we need to push, and then whatever's in that blood is going to be pushed through as well. So yeah, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, because you're also going to have, like I mentioned earlier, you're also going to have blood glucose increase from cortisol and from adrenaline and from, all these stress hormones, because if not, then you're going to go hypoglycemic during your workout. So yeah, your body is you're going to produce some insulin while you train anyhow, but you can probably produce a little bit more if you add the intra-workout carbs, and then again, whatever you're taking with them, your essential amino acids, whatever, you're going to help shuttle them a little bit more efficiently at that point. But yeah, so a couple things, like just to kind of bullet point it, is you might not necessarily need crazy amounts of carbs to intra workout. Keep in mind that people that, if they're suggesting 100 grams, 150 grams, they just utilize carbohydrates well. They just want to try it. They're experimenting. They're using exogenous insulin. You see like really big guys that are pounding tons of carbs. I'm like, okay, that's because they use 20 IUs of Humalog before their workout. And if they don't take in 200 grams of carbs, they're going, right. So, right. So, there's a multiple reasons for it, but I notice in general, just a modest dose of carbohydrates for even a person that's not using any kind of exogenous insulin is still probably beneficial. As far as like adding the essential amino acids, I tend to lean towards EAAs these days versus BCAAs, and I think that a lot of people,
yeah.
yeah, Yeah, that's like a whole nother topic now because, okay, so you eat pre-workout, and people think that you have to eat. I know a lot of people don't think that now. Like some people are realizing, oh, it's not true, but there is overlap with digestion and the amount of amino acids and stuff in your bloodstream between every time you eat, other than maybe while you're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you eating every 2 hours, like you still have, there is plenty of all that good stuff there from the last time you ate. So if you ate a meal an hour, even 2 hours pre-workout, you still have amino acids in your bloodstream. So what I would say is, well, why would you add essential amino acids? All I want to do is I just want to make sure that I'm fully stimulating muscle protein synthesis. So maybe there's in the main amino acids going to be leucine. And then the reason that we're using EAAs is because we want all the essential amino acids. It's just a security blanket. I'm making sure that it's all there in a high enough amount that I'm going to fully stimulate muscle protein synthesis, and we're good to go. So all of those, we don't have a complete protein. You could use a complete protein. I mean, there's people that use like PeptoPro, is hydrolyzed casein, hydrolyzed whey. You can use like one of the instances, well, the guy that I mentioned, that's just a calorie fitting thing. That's why we're putting more protein in there. But yeah, you could use a complete protein source, but in reality, like you still have some of those amino acids from your meal in your blood. So as long as you stimulate protein synthesis with that leucine in the rest of your EAAs, you're good. You're gonna have the raw materials you need to ignite that process, and then obviously you're probably going to eat post workout anyhow. So it's not like it's magic. Like you could train without EAAs.
Yeah.
You could. It's a cumulative thing. You know what I mean? Like it's giving you some benefit. It's making sure that you're maximally stimulating MPS, as much as you can. If it gives you 1% or 0.5%, but you train 5 times a week for 50 some weeks in a year, well, that's going to be beneficial. And most people that have used it, they're going to tell you, yeah, I don't get as sore, I recover a lot better. So I mean, that's what I would tell anyone that just wants to argue the science vantage point, because I'm like, okay, yeah, I get it. Like, I know we don't deplete that much glycogen. I know that we're eating before we train, but they're not as sore and their workout was better. So I don't care.
Exactly. Exactly. No, I don't know exactly the words. Yeah, I don't know how to put it any better, because so many times, yeah, I like argue with people on this, and that's where the science based and the practical or the application come into two different rounds. Because I personally, yeah, I recover a lot better. I have my buddy, he comes over and he hasn't had supplements. He doesn't really take supplements. He's not really like a hardcore gym person. He's just genetically gifted. When he goes to the gym and he started, like, he wanted to get into it. And then he said, oh, I was at GNC though. I was like, oh, hey, what did you get there? He's like, I got these BCAs. I'm like, nice, man. And he could tell, like, some of it's placebo probably at first, but after like doing it for a while, he's like, I recover so much better. I'm not sore really. And obviously, as time progresses on, you're going to be less and less sore just from training the stimulus. But
Right.
I feel like taking BCAAs or EAAs entirely, definitely, especially with carbohydrates, like you feel good without carbohydrates, just EAAs, recovering. But like maximal recovery, I feel 10 times better like combining the two together. You know what I mean?
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. And it's not like, so as long as, if it's a situation where somebody's budget's like crazy tight and we're kind of checking off priority list, we could do without it. But yeah, it's no doubt beneficial. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of bodybuilders and fitness enthusiasts all over the place that do it, and it helps. So yeah, it's kind of hard to argue with, but yeah, I mean, those are the main things intra workout. I mean, there's some other stuff you could start adding in. I mean, you could really add, I mean, there's other things like taurine might give you some hydration benefit, might give you some cognitive benefit. I mean, there's a lot of like little ingredients that you could add in,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know. Like, unless somebody's like, hey, I have zero limitation on budget. Let's make the sickest freaking, $500 per my paycheck. Like every 2 weeks costs me $500 to buy these supplements. I don't care. I mean, I can do it. Like I can make.
Wouldn't that be nice? Oh shit.
I mean, I've got a pretty extensive supplement knowledge. I mean, like we can make it as crazy as you want, but yeah. So those are probably, unless there's something that you were curious about, like those are probably a lot of the main things.
Yeah, I just wanted, like, you hit the points, everything I wanted. It's just for like the audience that's probably listening or watching to kind of like have the basics, and to disclaimer note first that none of this stuff will really work, if at all, or give you benefit if your nutrition and training are really not in line, for one. But I feel
Right.
like once you're kind of like getting more consistent and you're wanting to maybe invest in some stuff, you're trying to get to a like next level of performance, I guess you'd say, then I just want like the basic stuff, not basic, but I mean like the staples that are going on right now. And I think you hit everything. So, because that's exactly,
Yeah.
I like to use stuff like that too. So, yeah,
Yep.
anything else?
I agree. No, I like the little disclaimer at the end. Yeah, if you go in and you train it like a 5 out of 10 intensity wise, don't waste your time. I would probably say save your money and hire me, and I'll make you a better. We'll do some better training programming, and then we'll talk about supplementation.
Yeah, no, I agree, 100%. Well, all right, guys. Well, hey, I'm gonna put Austin's IG and email and all that kind of stuff, contact information on the description below here. And so reach out to him if you have any questions. Obviously, he's a very, very, very knowledgeable guy when it comes to supplementation. But also, if you have any questions about nutrition or programming, or wanting to hire him for a specific thing or whatever, feel free to reach out to him, because I know I've been talking with him a lot now, and he is very knowledgeable in all aspects of fitness and a lot of other things too. It's interesting. It's the guy of learning. So, anyways, so I want to say thank you, Austin. I really do appreciate it, my man.
Yeah, you did. That was really good, and you actually killed like almost time to eat again. So I wasn't even hungry.
Competition prep problems. Looking at that damn clock.
Yeah, I'm gonna go eat, finish up some emails, and do the rest of my cardio. Like you made my night better.
Hey, perfect. Well, hey, thanks again, man, and we'll have to have you on again. Okay.
Oh yeah, whenever, anytime.
All right. See you, Austin.
We'll see you, buddy.